Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan Newbrough, and I'm the CEO of the Colorado Springs Philharmonic, and I'm just delighted to be joined by our Associate Conductor Thomas Wilson, who will help us get right into the performance coming up, Mozart and Schoenberg. Coming up, it's the beginning of the Alan Lee Bittner Signature Series performed at the Ent Center for the Arts very, very soon on October 8th and 9th. And we really can't wait to see this audience come back to the Ent Center for this terrific performance. So Thomas, bring us right into this wonderful concert, Mozart and Schoenberg, an interesting pairing of composers.
Yes, Joseph has done something very interesting in putting this program together. It's a pretty short program. Both pieces are under half an hour, but it's really fantastic music. And Schoenberg, people hear that name and they think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But nothing to be scared of. This is sort of right in the middle. So he was a great late Romantic composer. Pelléas and Melisande, Transfigured Night, even the Gura Leader, completely tonal, it sounds very much like late Mahler or Strauss. And then 1906, Salome, Strauss. It was like an earthquake in modern music. To tell a story that gritty, Strauss had to go some very interesting harmonic lengths. And so Schoenberg was in the audience. He was obviously moved, and he just went right about composing the Chamber Symphony, sort of working out some of the ideas. And it's a really fascinating piece. 15 players, so everybody's a soloist. There's no parts that are doubled at all. And the movements are interconnected. It's sort of got symphonic structure, although he does sort of recapitulate some of the very beginning at the very end, to sort of make bookmarks, if you will, or bookends at the beginning and end of the piece. And it's just hauntingly beautiful and exciting and cool. There's just so much about it that I really like, but it's not his atonal phase yet. He hadn't gone that far.
Well, and for maybe newer audience members, you used this word earlier, tonal, and then you just said atonal. I mean, when many people think of Schoenberg, they're thinking of the more modern works, which is actually close to 100 years old. But more modern Schoenberg is tough to approach as a listener, but this isn't. This
Right.
was written in 1906 and is tuneful.
Yes.
And in that way, it's a perfect marriage with Mozart Symphony Number 39 that's on this performance as well.
I agree. And for Mozart here, we find Mozart at a fairly dark period for him. It was 1788. And the Austrian-Turkish War was going on, and there was just not quite the support for music that Mozart had known. He moved out to the suburbs where maybe he could lower his rent a little bit, but he also got a bigger space, so that's good. But we have letters from him at that time writing to friends saying, hey, could I borrow a little bit? And so it's just sad to see Mozart, at his absolute height, having to be in this position. And we don't know if the 39th Symphony was ever performed in his lifetime. We know for certain the first performance we're certain of was a memorial concert in 1792. So it's an interesting quantity in Mozart's output, but it's a wonderful symphony. It's very much part of the repertoire. It was composed along with his other final two symphonies, which are very famous. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a delightful piece. And for some reason, he opts for clarinets that were a newcomer to the orchestra in the classical era, but not for oboes. So he just drops the oboes out. And then the third movement feels like a Landler, like a sort of Viennese folk music dance sort of thing. And it's just a delightful symphony.
Right. So written at a dark period in his life, but not at all a dark piece.
Not at all.
What,
Of course not.
what sort of emotion must he been having at such a difficult time in his life to still write such bright, airy, spirited music?
Well, it does happen a lot. That does happen a lot. Mahler wrote his Eighth Symphony, which might be the single most joyous thing in the entire repertoire at what was arguably the darkest point in his life. And I think a lot of people go that way when they're having difficulty. They just can't, they can't deal with it. So they go the opposite direction.
Right. Well, as we mentioned earlier, this is the opening weekend of the Al and Lee Bittner Signature Series at the Ent Center for the Arts, and really exciting to go back to this venue. Most of our performances, of course, are at our main venue, our home, the Pikes Peak Center. Ent Center offers something really special and much more intimate. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and very exposed. It's actually, for musicians, it's a little bit of a mixed bag for us. We love that it just, there's that more intimate connection with the audience, but it's also very exposed for us. So we have to be very careful to play our absolute best in there.
Right. Well, you play your absolute best every time.
I try.
Well, thank you for bringing this to us. Thanks so much for speaking with us about Mozart and Schoenberg and getting us ready for this performance. It's going to be great, Thomas. I really think
Thanks,
so.
Nathan.
Yeah. Thanks, and see you all at the Ent Center for the Arts. Thanks again to Thomas Wilson, our associate conductor, and we will see you at the concert hall. All right, everyone, we're back. We couldn't get enough. We continued talking, and Thomas, we're going to do an epilogue to this video right now, because you need to hear the story of the Scandal concert and some of the scandals surrounding the Schoenberg work. Thomas, can you tell our viewers what you just told me?
Well, I want to tell the viewers, we're not trying to scare you away, but there are a lot of pieces that when they premiere, they have a certain scandal. There was a riot at the opening of Rite of Spring, for example. So, but in this particular case, the Chamber Symphony, for example, Mahler heard a rehearsal of it, and afterward he walked up to the musicians and he said, "Could you all play a C major chord?" And they did, and he kind of just like, shook his head, and he said something under his breath like, "That's what I thought," and he walked out. And yet Mahler was one of the biggest supporters of Schoenberg. So for example, at one of the performances of the first string quartet, he almost got in a fist fight with another audience member, just supporting Schoenberg. So it's a really interesting, conundrum about this time. And then my favorite is, of course, the great Scandal concert of 1913, where it was music. There was some Mahler on there, the Kindertotenlieder, which we're playing later in the season, and some Berg, some songs, and there was some other music, but also the Chamber Symphony. And it got so raucous that the police were called in, and they tried to keep everything calm, and it didn't work. They ended up stopping the concert early. So it's amazing to think that things could be at that level, and fortunately we're going to listen to this piece now and we go, oh yeah, that's really actually kind of beautiful in a lot of ways. Sure, that certainly there's some modern ideas, yeah, but it's really very accessible. But back then it was quite a scandal.
Yeah, because let's face it, culturally our tastes have matured and progressed as well, but maybe we should still have the campus police at UCCS on standby.
I don't think it's going to be necessary, but who knows?
Thomas, anything could happen, buddy. Anything could happen, my man. Anyway, so thanks everyone for continuing to watch this epilogue of the preview for the Mozart and Schoenberg performance coming up soon. We'll see you there.